What's up everybody, this is Danny and this is the video that you've been waiting for, the brand new Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra versus last year's S22 Ultra. I know, this just looks like a spec bump, but is it really? Is this a bigger upgrade than it looks, or can you just keep your S22 Ultra another year? We will dive into all of that and give you the camera comparison that you need to make the best buying decision, but just in case you missed it, let's start with the unboxing. So let's talk about the big things that you need to know about before hitting that buy button. The phones themselves look very similar, and I'm betting that the average consumer that looks at these won't be able to tell the difference. But if you look at the camera rings, they are a little thicker, so that's one way to tell. But the thing that I noticed immediately are the flatter sides of the new S23 Ultra. It gives it that boxier feel, and I think the grip is so much better. The screen also isn't as curved, so while it is small, it does make it feel different. The screen appears to be the same at 6.8 inches. They both look fantastic. One of the best displays on the market, both with peak brightnesses of 1750 nits. The thing that I did notice during setup is it looks like the under display fingerprint scanner is larger. When setting up the fingerprint, it actually moves around, and I thought that my eyes were messing up, but it does appear larger, so that is cool and it works really well. They both have the S Pen built in as well into the body, so nothing new on this side. The speaker placements and all of that are similar, but just to prove that they did make the S23 Ultra slightly thicker, I tried to put an S22 Ultra case on the S23, and you can see that the button placement is slightly off amongst other minor things like the camera. So I suggest you get ready with some of the fresh new cases from the channel sponsor Spigen. I normally show you some of my favorite cases and how they fit and what cases work best for different lifestyles. But this year, I feel like Samsung is really closing the gap on Apple's iPhone and even just straight up bringing identical features and software to entice people to switch over. So why not just make the transition complete by adding MagSafe to the Galaxy S23 Ultra with the Spigen Ultra Hybrid one-tap ring case. First of all, it's clear, so you can show off that fresh green color that is new this year to the S23 lineup, and that is my favorite color. And the one-tap ring that you might have seen before is now integrated right into the case, so there is no separate install. So that means instantly you get access to all of that MagSafe goodness, so everything is a go from MagSafe wallets, which are super convenient to keep your ID and backup card in. MagSafe compatible battery packs like the Arc Hybrid Mag that can give you an extra 5,000 milliamp hours of power while you are out. In fact, any MagSafe wireless charger actually works really well with this case. And my absolute favorite, the OMAG ring, this is a game changer, so when you want that phone holder on, you can have that comfort of the S23 Ultra being secure in your hand while you're using it. And it also doubles as a kickstand too, so that is a major bonus, so you can take advantage of that beautiful AMOLED 2X display. And when you are done, you can always take it off, so no longer do you have to be jealous of the iPhone's strong MagSafe connection. I've been using this in my car too, so this has given me new life to the way I use my Galaxy S23 Ultra, so I'll leave a link to all of this in the description so you can add MagSafe to your brand new Samsung phone, but I got a few more. To all who wanted a Ultra Hybrid 01 case for Android, Spigen listened, and they are starting here with the Galaxy S23 Ultra, so let me know what you think about this one. And if you are a gamer, then the Cryo Armor is the one that you want to help you dissipate as much heat as possible so you can get the absolute best frame rates and gaming performance out of your S23 Ultra. Speaking of gaming, that's another big advantage of the Galaxy S23 Ultra this year is that it gets a custom Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip, and basically this just equates to them being slightly faster than all of their competitors so far. The Galaxy S22 Ultra is still a very powerful phone with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chip inside, so I don't think you'll have any complaints about it for everyday use. But this processor jump in efficiency, battery life, and heat management is a pretty big one, so if you want the latest and greatest with the most features like the GPU improvements for gaming and the new camera features, you'll have to get the S23 Ultra. They do both have 5,000 milliamp hour batteries, so stay tuned to the full review for my verdict on battery life. But the S22 Ultra for me had great battery life, so I'm expecting the same out of the S23 Ultra. Of course, price is a huge factor when buying a new phone, but I guess if you're a baller, then price is no object, so then just go ahead and get the newest Galaxy S23 Ultra. But now that the S22 Ultra has been out for a year, you might be able to find it for a decent discount. It still has a killer camera, still has wireless charging. The fast wire charging also remains the same at 45 watts, and they both have that S Pen. So the experience on a daily basis is going to be very similar, so that is something to think about if you want to save a little money. The only thing is this year, the Galaxy S23 Ultra starts with 256 gigabytes of storage as the base model, which is great. And right now, Samsung is running a promotion where you get that 512 gigabyte upgrade for free. So I'll leave a link down below for you so you can take advantage of that before it runs out. But I think it's really gonna come down to the camera. And as I said earlier, it's a very familiar setup, but the big news everyone's talking about here is the new 200 megapixel camera. All of the other specs on the back look the same, but Samsung says they are all brand new lenses, so I will definitely test that here. The front-facing camera does get a change though, from a 40 megapixel sensor in last year's S22 Ultra to a 12 megapixel camera, so I'm curious to see what that changes. So will this camera make you want to upgrade? Let's find out. Let's jump right in. Okay, so let's kick it off with the front-facing video. Let me know which one looks better, and also let me know if there's an improvement to the microphones at all on these two phones. And I'm just gonna pan around a little bit to see what the dynamic range looks like. I know it's mixed lighting in here, so we can see how this handles it, but there is the front-facing video. So let's start with the daytime pictures, and I wanted to see if every lens was improved like Samsung said, so let's start with the main lens. With these pictures of the flowers, I noticed a difference right away. While of course there are differences in brightness and approaches, I noticed a big jump in clarity. This one is taken from the exact same distance, and maybe it doesn't look that different from this view, but crop in and just look at the difference. The focus is tack sharp in the middle, and I'm really impressed. I do notice that dynamic range and highlight control is a priority when shooting up close like this. Some might like the S22 Ultra better because it is brighter in the foreground, but look at the balance and dynamic range here on the S23 Ultra while retaining detail on the leaf. You won't get drastic results like this every time. I want you to have the right expectations. I'm seeing at least a slight improvement in almost all of the pictures, so even with that 200 megapixel sensor bending down to 12 megapixels, this is very impressive. Now, I know you want to know, what about those 200 megapixel photos? But first, let's compare a 50 megapixel photo on the S23 Ultra to the 108 megapixel on the S22 Ultra. This year, you get a choice between two high resolution options. There is the picture. They both look similar, but the S23 Ultra looks brighter with more shadow detail. But here is the image cropped in, and wow, the 50 megapixel almost looks as detailed as the 108 megapixel, which is nice. But let's test the 200 megapixel, and this is the photo. And see this little thing right here in the water? This is what we're going to crop into. At 500% scale, they both look very detailed, so it's hard to tell a huge difference. But now let's go to 1000% scale and just look at that clarity still retained. This is crazy to have in your pocket. And now at 2000% scale, you can really see a difference. And look at that noise control in the S23 Ultra. And just in case you were wondering, this ended up being 33.69 megabytes, about 3 times the size of the S22 Ultra's file, but not bad at all considering this is 200 megapixels. It could use some tuning, and I'm sure it'll get better in the future. In this shot, the dynamic range was better on the S22 Ultra, so let's see what software upgrades can bring to the future of 200 megapixel photography. So next I want to test the 3x telephoto, and the results were improved, better color, contrast, and clarity. If you look here, there's more of the entire frame in focus. I don't remember the 3x being like this before on the S22 Ultra, so that's a little weird to see. I am also noticing that the processing has less sharpening all around, so I'm glad to see this. Some shots did look pretty much identical, so that's always gonna happen with camera comparisons. When I switched to the 10x once in a while, the S22 Ultra did a better job, like here on the writing. But for the most part, when zooming in this far, I was seeing a lot more washed out looking photos on the S22 Ultra, where the S23 Ultra maintained that contrast and color. These results were constant throughout the entire day, so I can say that the zoom lenses are definitely improved no matter if it's optical or software. To put it all into one continuous test, here is the main, and then here is the 3x, which confirms all of my other shots with it being sharper with more detail and contrast. Here is the 10x optical zoom, again the same thing. I really can't believe how good this 10x looks. And even the 100x zoom, it looks a ton better. Look at the roof here and just the clarity of the writing. If that is not enough, I pretty much saw this across the board with pictures in general. Even the macro pictures look more refined and detailed. Now, don't get this mixed up. I'm not saying that the Galaxy S22 Ultra is doing bad whatsoever, because it looks great still, but putting these side by side really shows that this is an actual leap in overall photography during the day. But even in the food shots, take a look at here where this is completely in focus, but the depth of field is the same. The portrait mode shots even look to be more refined with better highlight control and contrast. So this is a major go for the daytime photos. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you expect this? Okay, so this is the big one. What about nighttime? While I was getting some instances where the S22 Ultra did better, like here with the highlight control, again, I have good news. I'm seeing better photos at night as well. Look at the control over the neon sign, so much cleaner. And with single snapshots, I'm seeing an improvement in dynamic range as well. Look at the windows right here. Now, when you kick in night mode, they are more comparable in dynamic range, but what I'm liking is the dial back on the over sharpening side. If you look at this shot here, they almost look identical, but then when you crop in, you can see that the S23 Ultra is stepping back on the sharpening while retaining most of the detail. It is the same thing in this shot, very similar without peeping in, but once you punch in, the image looks smoother to me, and that could be because of the more aggressive reducing on the noise, but I prefer it. Jumping into the left upper corner of this image, look at the detail still maintained by the new phone while reducing noise throughout the picture. So I think Samsung is going in the right direction in terms of processing. The color processing doesn't look much different in this shot, but I did notice that the noise is better controlled yet again by the S23 Ultra. Look at the blotchiness here. That's the one thing that I always complained about in previous comparisons. Yes, the Coca-Cola building test is here, and on single snap, it looks like Samsung is doing better. And when you switch to night mode, the red is very similar, and it's improved with processing on both phones, but the detail between the cubes is so much better on the S23 Ultra. I did notice that the noise reduction sometimes gets in the way of portrait mode, so I would like to see that improved. While I still prefer the S23 Ultra shot because the S22 Ultra is so heavily sharpened, the skin looks like there is a halo beauty mode on it on my kids. I know it's just software because it doesn't happen on every shot, just depends on the lighting scenario, but granted, this phone just launched, so you know in typical Samsung fashion, they will drop some software updates down the road to improve the overall experience, so I'm not worried, but you should always buy the phone for what it can do now and not what's promised in the future. So what you're seeing now is what you can expect at launch. But you also got to look at it like this. The S22 Ultra also has improved heavily since last software update, so that is a good thing. Here is a zoom test at night, and this is the 3x telephoto, and the S22 Ultra actually looks better here. But then when you jump to the 10x, which now looks much better on the S23 Ultra, then we're going to the 30x, and wow, just look at the bricks here. This is not even close whatsoever. And even on the 100x, while they both don't look good, the S23 Ultra's looks better. Let's end photos with the 200 megapixel at night. First, at 300% scale, it's hard to tell the difference right away, but if you look here, you can see how much sharper the detail is on the second half of the balloon. And jumping into the 1000% scale, you can see the detail difference, and this one only ended up being 23.71 megabytes on the file size. The more 200 megapixel pictures that I took, I was getting the same results. When you crop in, the detail retention is a big jump, so I think that you will like that a lot. But the noise reduction could use a little work. If you look at the sky up here, it has a lot more noise on the 200 megapixel shots, which makes sense at this resolution. This is what I expected. You will get some more details in your photos, but be ready for some more noise in that shot. So in normal everyday pictures at night, I would think about using the 12 megapixel bin mode instead. So let's end it with video. The nighttime video has improved. So this is 4K 30 frames per second. And you can see that Samsung got a little more aggressive with the contrast, bringing the noise down. So I think it looks better. If you watch this on a larger screen, you will notice that the video is cleaner all around and it's not as muddy as it is on the S22 Ultra. In dark conditions, you will still see plenty of noise in both, but the S23 Ultra will give you better results at night. I'm also noticing in mixed lighting conditions like this, the dynamic range is also improved on the S23 Ultra. Just look at the storefront windows here. It's much better exposed. The big improvement to me is in the 8K video. Look at how much better it is on the new phone. No longer do you have this giant crop in 8K anymore, so that is gone, making it usable for everyday video. When you punch in, you can just see how much sharper it is, and the noise is also controlled better on the S23 Ultra. So to me, the 8K video is the star of the show this year. Here is a side-by-side with walking video. Yes, there is a little bit of a jelly effect from the bounce, but dang, the stability of 8K video is so impressive. And look at that quality jump from the S22 Ultra. I was not expecting this whatsoever. During the day, it's the same thing too. The crop is gone, so I'll be using 8K a lot more. So let me know what you think about that. Will you use it more? I'm going to make a separate video on all of the stabilization, especially the action stuff. So if you want more details, stay tuned for that. But let's end on this walking 4K 30 frames per second video switching between the lenses. I think if you have an S20 or an S21 Ultra, this is a major leap and it's a no-brainer upgrade. And I did not expect the changes to be on so many levels of the camera for everyday use, and this was a very pleasant surprise. But if you decide to keep your S22 Ultra another year, there's nothing wrong with that because it still has a fantastic camera.